Welcome to my channel. Subscribe and enjoy daily stories about cheating, revenge, and relationship advice. The evening was cloaked in a familiar sense of domesticity. Emily had spent most of the day preparing a simple but delicious dinner, and now the house smelled of roasted chicken and fresh herbs. I was half absorbed in the hum of the television, my mind wandering aimlessly. The sense of routine was comforting, even if a bit monotonous. Emily entered the living room, a delicate smile gracing her lips as she carried a small, white envelope. She plopped down on the couch next to me and placed the envelope on the coffee table. Her movements were casual, almost too casual for what she was about to say. "Hey Jay, there's something I need to tell you," she said, her tone light and almost playful. I shifted my attention from the TV, sensing that her demeanor meant this was more than just casual conversation. "What's up?" She hesitated for a moment, a hint of hesitation flashing across her face before she took a deep breath. "So, you know Brian from work, right? The one I mentioned a few times." "Yeah, I remember him." "What about him?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. Emily's fingers fidgeted with the envelope as she spoke. "Well, he asked me to dinner this Friday." I said yes. I blinked, caught off guard by her words. "You said yes to a dinner with Brian? Like, just the two of you?" Emily nodded, her eyes avoiding mine. "Yeah, but it's not a big deal. It's more of an outing. We've both been so busy at work, and he wanted to catch up." I felt a surge of confusion and frustration. "Emily, are you sure about this? It feels like you're crossing a line. I mean, we've never done something like this before." She looked up, a mixture of defensiveness and hurt in her eyes. "Jay, it's just dinner. It's not like I'm doing anything wrong. I thought it would be a nice break from work and a chance to catch up with a friend." I tried to steady my voice. "It's not about the dinner itself. It's about the fact that you didn't even think to consult me before agreeing to it. It feels like you're disregarding how this might make me feel." Emily's face reddened slightly, her tone turning sharper. "I didn't think it would be an issue. I've mentioned Brian before, and you've met him a couple of times. It's just dinner, Jay. It's not like I'm going to cheat on you or anything." The room seemed to grow smaller as the weight of her words settled in. I struggled to find the right response, my mind racing through 1,000 thoughts. "I don't know, Emily. It just doesn't sit right with me. I wish you had talked to me before making this decision." Emily's shoulders sagged, and she let out a frustrated sigh. "I'm sorry if I upset you. I just wanted to have a nice evening out. Maybe I should have asked, but it didn't seem like it would be such a big deal." We sat in silence for a moment, the tension between us palpable. I could see that she was genuinely sorry, but the feeling of betrayal lingered. "Fine. We'll see how it goes." Emily reached out and touched my arm, her voice softer now. "Jay, I really didn't mean to hurt you. I just wanted to have a simple dinner with a colleague. Can we talk about this more later?" I nodded, though my heart wasn't fully in it. "Yeah, sure. We can talk later." As Emily retreated to the kitchen to finish dinner, I was left alone with my thoughts. The warmth of the house seemed to dim, replaced by a gnawing sense of unease. The evening that had started with such promise now felt like it was on the verge of unraveling, and I couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to get much more complicated. The next few days were a blur of restless nights and tense conversations. The house felt like a pressure cooker, with Emily and I skirting around each other, neither willing to fully confront the discomfort that had settled between us. It was on Wednesday morning, while I was sipping my coffee and staring blankly at the newspaper, that I came to a decision. Emily had left for work, and I was alone, letting the weight of the situation settle heavily on my shoulders. I knew that I couldn't just let things go without making my feelings known, but I wanted to do more than just complain. If Emily was going to spend time with Brian, then I needed to do something to show that I was just as unaffected, or at least I wanted to seem that way. I pulled out my phone and texted Angel, one of my clients. We'd had a few casual conversations about grabbing a drink sometime, and now seemed like the perfect moment to push that idea forward. I felt a twinge of guilt as I typed out the message but quickly dismissed it. If Emily could disregard our relationship's boundaries, then I had every right to assert myself. Hey Angel, remember how we talked about catching up? How about dinner this Friday? I sent the text, my thumb hovering nervously over the send button before I finally tapped it. Within minutes, Angel responded with enthusiasm. That sounds great. Looking forward to it. Relief mixed with a pang of unease as I confirmed the time and place. As the day dragged on, I couldn't shake the feeling of anxiety that accompanied my decision. The thought of Emily's reaction, should she find out, loomed over me like a dark cloud. By Friday evening, I was dressed and ready for my dinner with Angel. I looked in the mirror, trying to muster up the confidence that I was hoping would make this situation less complicated. The doorbell rang just as I was about to leave, and Emily walked in, her eyes catching mine with an unreadable expression. "Where are you headed?" she asked, her voice cool but laced with a hint of curiosity. I hesitated for a moment, then decided to be upfront. "I'm meeting Angel for dinner." Emily's eyebrows shot up. "Angel? From work?" "Yeah," I said, trying to keep my tone as casual as possible. "I figured if you can have an outing with Brian, then I can do the same." Her face flushed, a mix of surprise and frustration evident. "So, you're retaliating?" "That's what this is about." I shrugged, trying to maintain a nonchalant demeanor. "I wouldn't call it retaliation. I just think it's only fair if we both have a chance to unwind and socialize." Emily's lips tightened into a thin line. "I didn't realize we were keeping score. I thought we were just trying to manage our own social lives." "There's no score," I replied, my voice rising slightly. "But it seems like you didn't think about how your plans with Brian would affect me. Now I'm just trying to make things even." Emily looked at me with a mix of anger and hurt. "I didn't think this through, Jay. I admit that. But making this into a contest isn't going to help anything." I could see the frustration in her eyes, but I felt my own resolve hardening. "I don't see how else to handle it right now." With a final, pained look, Emily turned and walked out of the room. I watched her go, feeling a pang of regret but also a sense of grim satisfaction. As I left for my dinner, the weight of our argument hung heavy on my shoulders. The night ahead with Angel felt like an escape, but it was overshadowed by the unresolved tension that awaited us when we both returned home. The restaurant where I was meeting Angel was a chic, modern place with dim lighting and a lively ambience. I arrived a few minutes early, wanting to settle in and shake off the lingering tension from earlier. The air was filled with the rich aromas of grilled meat and spices, and the soft murmur of conversation created a comforting background hum. Angel arrived right on time, her presence commanding attention with a confident stride and a warm smile. She looked effortlessly stylish in a sleek, navy blue dress that complemented her striking features. "Jay, it's so good to see you," she said as she approached, her voice cheerful and engaging. "Angel, you look great," I replied, standing to greet her. We exchanged a quick hug before sitting down at our table. The evening started off on a positive note. We ordered a bottle of wine and settled into conversation with ease. Angel's laughter was contagious, and her stories about her recent travels and work projects brought a welcome distraction from the stress of the past week. "So, tell me more about your recent trip to Paris," I prompted, taking a sip of wine. "Oh, it was amazing. The food, the art, everything was just perfect," Angel said, her eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. "I went to this little cafe near the Louvre. They had the best croissants I've ever tasted." "That sounds incredible," I said, genuinely interested. "I've always wanted to visit Paris, but I haven't had the chance yet." As the evening continued, the conversation flowed smoothly. Angel had a knack for keeping things light and engaging, and I found myself laughing and enjoying the night more than I had anticipated. For a few hours, I managed to push aside the complicated emotions tied to Emily and Brian. Meanwhile, back at home, Emily's dinner with Brian was not going as smoothly. Emily had called me earlier, her voice filled with frustration and regret. "Jay, this is not going well," she said, her tone strained. Brian's been distant and awkward. I'm starting to regret agreeing to this. Do you want to talk about it? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm despite the underlying tension. Emily sighed. I don't know what's wrong. It feels like we're both just going through the motions. I should have listened to my gut instead of trying to be polite. I could hear the disappointment in her voice, and it was a bitter reminder of the discord that had crept into our lives. Well, it sounds like you're having a tough time. Maybe you can salvage the evening, or just wrap it up and come home. Yeah, I think I'll just cut it short, Emily said. I'm sorry about all this. I didn't mean to make things worse. As I hung up the phone, I tried to focus on the positives of my evening with Angel. We enjoyed a delightful meal, shared stories and laughter, and ended the night with a promise to catch up again soon. As we walked to the parking lot, Angel turned to me with a warm smile. I had a great time tonight, Jay. I'm really glad we finally made this happen. Me too, I replied, feeling a mixture of relief and unease. Thanks for a wonderful evening. We said our goodbyes and parted ways, but as I drove home, I couldn't shake the feeling that the night's events had done little to resolve the underlying issues between Emily and me. The pleasure of the evening with Angel was overshadowed by the unresolved tension and hurt that awaited us when I walked through the door. When I finally arrived home, Emily was already there, her expression a mix of weariness and regret. We barely exchanged words as I walked in, and the weight of our unspoken thoughts hung heavy in the air. The night had done little to soothe the turbulence between us, and it was clear that the path to resolution would require more than just a single evening out. The days following our respective dates were tense and filled with unspoken resentment. Emily and I avoided each other's gaze, each of us mired in our own sense of frustration and regret. Our attempts to bridge the growing chasm between us were futile, and it was clear that we needed help to navigate the emotional turmoil. On Monday morning, Emily broached the subject with a hesitant but determined tone. Jay, I've been thinking. Maybe we should see a counselor. I think we need some help to figure things out. I looked up from my coffee, surprised by her suggestion but feeling a pang of relief. You really think that's the best idea? Emily nodded, her expression serious. Yes. We've been struggling with this, and I don't want it to destroy what we have. I think talking to someone could help. I sighed, feeling the weight of the past week lift just slightly. All right. Let's do it. We set up an appointment with a couples counselor named Dr. Adams. The first session was scheduled for that Wednesday evening, and the anticipation was nerve-wracking. As we walked into Dr. Adams' office, a cozy room with calming colors and comfortable chairs, the atmosphere felt oddly reassuring. Dr. Adams greeted us warmly and invited us to sit down. Jay, Emily, thank you for coming in. I understand you've been dealing with some issues in your relationship. Why don't we start by hearing from each of you about what's been going on? Emily took a deep breath and began, her voice tinged with vulnerability. We've been having a hard time lately. Jay and I had a falling out because I went on a dinner with a coworker, and Jay arranged a date with one of his clients in response. It's made things really awkward between us. Dr. Adams nodded, listening intently. And how did that make you feel, Jay? I shifted in my seat, trying to find the right words. I felt hurt and betrayed. I didn't think Emily's dinner with Brian was appropriate, and when I tried to make my point by going out with Angel, it just made everything worse. Now, it feels like we're both stuck in this cycle of resentment. Dr. Adams looked between us with a thoughtful expression. It sounds like both of you felt that your boundaries were crossed, and in response, you each acted out of hurt and frustration. This is a common reaction, but it's important to understand that these actions often lead to more conflict rather than resolution. Emily nodded, her eyes welling up slightly. I didn't realize how much my actions would affect Jay. I thought I was just having a friendly dinner, but I see now that it hurt him deeply. I reached out and took Emily's hand, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. And I didn't handle my feelings in the best way either. I should have communicated better instead of reacting impulsively. Dr. Adams guided us through a series of exercises designed to foster better communication and understanding. We talked about our feelings openly and practiced active listening, where each of us took turns expressing our emotions while the other listened without interrupting. As the weeks went by, we attended regular counseling sessions and made a conscious effort to apply what we were learning. We started to understand each other's perspectives and worked on rebuilding the trust that had been shaken. It wasn't easy, but it was clear that both of us were committed to mending our relationship. One evening, after a particularly enlightening session, Emily and I sat together on the couch, the room bathed in the soft glow of the lamp. "I've been thinking," Emily said softly, "about how we got here and what we need to do to move forward." I turned to her, my heart open. "Me too. I think we've learned a lot about ourselves and each other. I want us to focus on our marriage and build a stronger foundation." Emily nodded, her eyes earnest. "I agree. We need to remember that we're on the same team and work through things together. I'm sorry for not considering how my actions would impact us." "I'm sorry too," I said, squeezing her hand. "I know I wasn't perfect either. But I want us to make this work." The journey wasn't over, but we were making progress. With each session, we grew closer and more attuned to each other's needs. The process of rebuilding our relationship was ongoing, but for the first time in weeks, we felt hopeful about our future together. It was a reminder of the importance of trust, communication, and mutual respect in our marriage, and we were ready to face the challenges ahead as a united front.